Hello, Mike here, and welcome to Let's Build Something, where we're building a machine learning project all the way from base principles, base concept, all the way through to something live and essentially in production. My name is Mike Chambers. I'm an AWS machine learning hero. I'm also a machine learning trainer and all-round cloud enthusiast. Joining me as ever for this live stream. Thank you so much for coming back for yet another week. It's Safdar, Technical Account Manager for Amazon Web Services in Chicago. How's Chicago today, Safdar?
Chicago is awesome. Nice
Yeah,
weather. It's awesome actually.
it's brilliant. Okay, cool. And we'll catch up with you and see how your week has been. We also have another guest with us today. Thank you so much to Amardeep, who is one of the AWS community builders, or a member of the community builder program, and has lots and lots of other things to talk about in terms of machine learning. Amardeep, hello, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, everybody. It's just a great experience to be here and to get in touch with everybody.
Awesome,
Yeah.
awesome. And you're in Toronto, correct? Oh,
Yep. Currently in Toronto at the moment, and it is,
Toronto.
I guess, raining here at the moment.
Oh, really? Well, essentially, Safdar and Amardeep, you're basically neighbors, right? Toronto
Yes.
and Chicago.
Pretty
Compared to
much.
me, I mean, yeah, I'm in the I'm on the east coast of Australia, so compared to me, you guys are basically neighbors. If you yell out the window, you probably hear each other. Excellent. All right. Well, look, let's get into this. Everybody's joining us in the live stream, so thank you very much for joining us there. As you join the live stream, as you join the comments, please just let us know where you're watching from. I'm sure we'll have some of our usual attendees coming in there. So look, waiting for those to pop along. Anything that you've got, any questions you've got, pile them into the comments. We'll flash them up on screen. We'll try to answer them. This essentially is an answer was ask me anything. I will answer anything. We'll all answer anything that we possibly can. Amardeep, I'm particularly interested to talk to you about where you've come from, what your ML journey has been. So we'll jump into that. I'll just do a little recap about where we've come from so far in the build process and where we're going to today. So this whole thing has been about building so far an image classification solution, an image classification algorithm. So if I can maybe just jump over to what I sort of call the blackboard. I'm going to draw this diagram again. It's been a while since I've drawn this, but we are essentially building a solution where we have our mobile phone. Hopefully that's coming up at some point. I can't see it. There we go. We are taking photographs of objects. For me, I'm just going to draw a picture of a cup of tea because it is important, as everybody will know, that I drink cups of tea when we're doing this. Nigeria, hello, thank you for joining us. Always very keen you are to join these streams, and you're very welcome. Always getting in touch with me on LinkedIn prior to this, making sure that we're going to do these lives. Anybody who's interested in connecting, there's a link in stream. LinkedIn link down the bottom there. So anyway, this is the solution we've got. We're going to take images of things using a mobile. We're just going to make a web app. This is probably what we're going to look at next week. And it is going to send the image over to AWS machine learning code that we'll talk about today, and send the response back saying, you know, this is a cup or whatever it is, tea or whatever. So far, we've looked at the data set that we needed to put this together. Seattle, hello. Thank you for calling out North America there. So we have this data set. We've curated that data set. We've put together the labels, all of that kind of stuff. And last week, we built a machine learning model. So we actually trained our machine learning model using AWS SageMaker. And the model is available for you now inside of GitHub. We'll have a look at the link for that. There's actually a link, I think, in the description of this video. If not, the description of the last video, it's in the GitHub repository as well. So this is the model that we created. What we're going to do this week is we're going to set this model up in an inference endpoint so we can actually use it to see if we can use our model that we've trained to make predictions about images that we have. And next week, what we're going to do is we're going to sort of glue it all together and put this app together and actually see it all working. But so in many ways, I think today is probably the sort of the exciting day where we actually sort of see things in action and see things working. There's a GitHub repository for these sessions. So if you've been following along, they're here. And you can see the link again will either be in the description, or it's already in the description, or it's in the description to another video. But it's essentially at learn-mightychambers-com. Let's build something live. And you can see the code that we've got in here. In episode 3's folder, we've got just one text file essentially, and inside of that text file is the link to the model that we created. So if you don't want to go ahead and train your own model from the point of view of cost, for example, then you can go ahead and grab that model from there. That's a web endpoint, so you can download it. You'll have to upload it and put it into S3 for yourself. So that's basically where we're at. So let's jump back in and maybe just get to know Amardeep just a little bit more. I just wanted to give everybody a bit of a recap of where we were at, also give people an opportunity to jump into the live stream as well. But Amardeep, thank you so much for joining us. Can you tell us a little bit about what it is that you're doing at the moment, and maybe your journey into machine learning? How did you get into machine learning?
Well, first of all, real pleased to sort of get this opportunity to get a one-to-one communication. My first introduction to machine learning was sort of with my own discipline in my bachelor's, where I took up a course on process control. And it was a bit interesting to see how the industry's moved away from using conventional controllers to using AI-based controllers. So it was like simple coding using MATLAB, but through the next few years, I got a lot more experience in sort of building those systems using Python and RStudio. So, and yeah, that was sort of the first, you could say push that just got me into it.
Yeah, cool. So is that, when you say process control, you're talking about in manufacturing plants and things, and sort of moving things around? Is it SCADA? Is that the terminology I'm looking for?
That's correct. Yes, PLC. So that's programmable logical control. And this is usually built using phase gates or simple SCADA-based applications. Not exactly too intuitive, because most people I've heard about who've used such applications just go crazy with it. So it's a lot more simpler to just use Python for those machine learning purposes.
Yeah, actually, that's something that we've talked about before in these conversations, in these live streams as well. Obviously, machine learning is awesome. I think machine learning is awesome. I think it's right on the border between sort of computer science and magic. Obviously, it's real. And you can do amazing things with it, but you shouldn't sort of abuse it, right? You should use it where it's appropriate. And I think even Elon Musk said this as part of the machine learning. They do a lot of machine learning at Tesla and at SpaceX, but particularly at Tesla for self-driving cars. And they're saying, don't apply machine learning to problems that don't need it, right? So if expert systems and artificial intelligence work, and maybe even complex code works, then just do that. I think actually it was in relation to process automation in the Tesla manufacturing plant. Someone was saying, do you use reinforcement learning to make the robots figure out how to build cars? And it's like, no, we know how to build cars. We just tell them what to do. So no, but that's really interesting. So you're sort of working at that interface, right, between that process control and pushing it forward into, so would you call that artificial intelligence or machine learning?
That would be artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right.
Awesome. And so now you've branched out, you're sort of more into the machine learning, is as I understand now. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing at the moment.
So currently I do sort of volunteer for a machine learning group called Omdena, where I used to head as a lead machine learning engineer. Now I'm a product manager with them. I'm also currently working with a couple of, I'd say 2 or 3 startups at the moment on the space of NLP, normal anomaly detection, and also computer vision. So it's a mixed bag of different experiences.
Nice. I've got the Amdanna site up at the moment, because you did mention that to me before. Can you tell us a little bit about this? This does look really interesting, maybe even some parallels to what we were talking about last week. But can you tell us a bit more about Omdena?
Yeah, Omdena is, I'm not sure if I'm at liberty to sort of market the website, but
Sure.
I am sort of like a small ambassador for them, so I guess it's fine. My first introduction to Omdena was back in January 2020, when I was looking into doing more open-ended projects for machine learning. And the format is pretty much quite amazing. You are basically grouped along with 40 to 50 other machine learning engineers, data scientists from around the globe, and you receive a challenge from an existing startup who have some sort of machine learning needs to be met.
Nice.
You work around for 2 months, and the deliverables would be either websites, models they can use, or simple, interfaces, for example.
Yep. So you don't work for Omdena as such, but what you're doing here is you're working on a project on this platform with a team. Is that right?
That's correct. Yes. Yeah.
Cool.
Volunteering as a product manager for one of the projects.
That's really interesting. So obviously, with machine learning, it's a niche thing. I think it's becoming less and less of a niche thing, but it is currently a niche thing. So if you want to get involved with a team of like-minded people from around the globe, presumably that's essentially what you've done here, right?
Oh, that's correct. Yes.
Yeah, cool.
And it's always just amazing to see the multitude of projects and data sets you get almost every single month.
Nice. No, that's really cool. And I really enjoy learning about this type of stuff. Last week, we talked to Matt Patterson, and Matt has basically set up spacelab.space is the URL. That's not quite like this, but it's a collection of people that just want to sort of come together and tackle projects together. They have obviously their focus is on space technology and finding planets, I think it was, as Matt was describing to us last week. But this sounds as though it's almost like a platform where you can come together and sort of find your team, right? Find the people you want to interact with. That's really cool. Nice. Excellent. Okay, cool. Well, look, I'll tell you what we'll do. We got some build to do this session. And so there are some things that we're going to have to wait for as we sort of step through this process. But yeah, as I said before, we're working on this image classification problem. We have a model. We basically now need to get it into a state that we can actually start to make predictions from. I kind of wanted to do this last week, but we were going so over time that we kind of pulled the pin and said, fine, we've got that far. So as I showed you before, in the GitHub repository, there is this link to the model. If you want to download it at some point, do this yourself. Otherwise, just watch and follow along potentially. Where am I? I'm going to go into Amazon SageMaker in the AWS console and jump into a Jupyter Notebook. So this is the Jupyter Notebook that we've got set up for this session. Keen, eagle-eyed viewers now will notice that there is actually a version 2 of the notebook. That is for no other reason than I was linking it up to the GitHub repository, just made it easier for me to be able to publish updates. If you're interested in how to do that, then ask and I shall have that go. I did see a question pop up before and I didn't manage to read it out in time, sorry. So if any questions, pop them into the chat again and Safdar will bring it up on screen. Oh, here we go. Help and support me with tips and tricks for machine learning assessment. Absolutely. It depends on what you mean by assessment. Do you mean your exam that you have to sit, or is this a machine learning model that's making the assessment? Yeah, look, absolutely. If you've got any specific questions, then throw them in here. Otherwise, connect with me on LinkedIn. As multiple viewers of this stream will attest, I'm fine with jumping on a call and talking through the projects you have, unless they're commercial projects. But if you're personal projects and you're learning how this stuff works, then absolutely, let's jump in there and have a look. So here we are inside the notebook. Let's create a new folder for this session now. So for this lesson, I'm just going to go and rename this. And so this is what we do, right? We live code things. So I don't try to have very much pre-canned because that's not very authentic. And if I make a mistake, you need to see that mistake being made. So let's go into episode 4's folder. I'll push this up to GitHub once we've finished all this. And I'm going to go in and create a new Python notebook. We don't necessarily need any frameworks here because we're using SageMaker, and SageMaker libraries are basically built into, I think, all of these. So I'm choosing Python 3. And so that'll give us a brand new, fresh notebook to get going with. Are you a Jupyter Notebook user, Amardeep?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, my initial introduction was with actually RStudio, but ever since I've started to use Jupyter Notebooks, that's pretty much all I use for now.
No, for sure. I always get this little collection fail thing. Let's press OK. Yeah, there are a few different tools, right, that you can use which are sort of similar in this space. I've seen Databricks and Jupyter Notebooks, and then Jupyter Notebooks in various guises, and RStudio, and it is interesting how many tools there are out there. And I think it's really important for people to know about them, because honestly, when I first found out about Jupyter Notebooks, I was actually just a bit grumpy that I hadn't been told about this before, because it's so useful. You end up with like a whole directory full of Python scripts, as I did, where they're kind of loosely commented and you don't really know what they do. And like I wrote that 6 months ago. Having it inside of a Jupyter Notebook is super helpful. And just a much more very visual and interactive way of running things. Let's do the right thing and actually have some rich text at the top here. So let's build something, and I don't know, let's make some inference. Is that how you spell it? That'll do. And viewers will know as well that I am commonly making typos in this. Hello, Mike. All SageMaker and ML libraries in Python. Okay, so to the best of my knowledge, the SageMaker SDK is actually built into the Python kernel, which is used in this environment. So we're using at the moment SageMaker Notebooks. SageMaker Notebooks managed by AWS. The kernels that we saw there before when we went to go and select new and pick a kernel from here, these are kernels which have been developed by AWS to support this environment. And my understanding is that they all have the SageMaker SDK in them. This one certainly does, the Python 3 one. Also, in here will be the Boto 3 library. And actually thinking about it, we might not be using the SageMaker SDK during this session, but we'll be using the Boto 3. And Boto 3 is all about, it's basically the AWS SDK for Python. So yeah, that's what we're going to be using in this session. So we got this up and running here. We could use the SageMaker SDK to actually deploy the endpoint, but I'm going to do it through the console, which is what we did last week. We sort of concentrated on looking at the console. So let me go back into the console. I'm going to go to training for a second and go to training jobs. And we're just going to be able to see from here the training job that we completed last week. Now, you remember last week we had training job 1 and training job 2. Training job 1 is where I tried to do it with a Spot instance, and we didn't have capacity, unfortunately. So I had to quickly stop that and start it without Spot capacity. And so that's where we got training job 2 there, and it says completed. And so inside my account, if I just go into there, if I scroll down to the bottom, we'll see all the details about the training job that we did. And we'll see somewhere down the bottom the output. And so this is the location inside of S3 where the model is for me. So for you, if you haven't done the training yourself, and if you want to follow along from this point, you can download the model from that link that we were looking at before inside of GitHub. Download that, upload that somewhere into S3 in your account, and then you can kind of like follow what we're doing from there on. So I'm just going to go and pop that out into a separate window so we can have a look at the actual model itself. There it is. It can't do much with it. It's just a tar gzipped file. I'm just going to click on that and copy the URI there. Hopefully that will be something that we can use in just a second. And then we go back to SageMaker. Now what we're going to do is we're going to use another tab down the side here. Let me just get myself out of the way. We're going to go to the inference tab. And inside of inference, we're going to go to endpoints. You can go to endpoint configurations and then endpoints, but I'm just going to go to endpoints, keep it simple. It'll actually take you through the process here. And we're going to say create endpoint. And so what we're doing here is we're using the SageMaker capability of hosting our model in a production scale compute environment. We get to choose the level, right? We get to choose the compute instance we're using, and it will make it available so that we can actually go and make inference. Now, it's only going to really make it available to code running inside of our account. If we want to be able to use this in an external application, that's what we're going to be looking at next week. So let's go ahead and say, give it an endpoint name. So LBS, let's build something. And we can say that this is, I don't know, Model 1. Give it an interesting name, Model 1. I'm going to come down here to say endpoint configuration. So we're going to create an endpoint configuration during this session. So we're going to say create a new endpoint configuration. Click on that radio button. Did it work? Yes, it did. And now we just need a configuration name. So let's build something, Model 1 endpoint will do for a name. So you can set these up. These are independent of each other. The endpoint configuration is essentially just a package of configuration, and you can then throw that into the endpoint and build an endpoint up. But we're doing both at once here. I'm going to leave most of these things as default. We're not going to get into the details of a lot of these things. So let's just skip over these things and go down here to production variants. This is where we actually get to choose the model that we want to make go live. So I click Add Model, and we can see here we have LBS Test 4. Hoping that's the right one that we wanted. Let me just go back to back into here. I'm just want to make sure that we do these things right, because it can take a while to make mistakes here. So let's go back into SageMaker. I've left that tab open, by the way. I'm going back into SageMaker. Let's look at training jobs, and see, I'm looking for LBS training job 2. So why am I seeing training job for LBS test 4? It's because I've missed a step. So I'm going to go back here, sorry, and we're going to go back up to, I'm going to leave that open there, and hopefully we can refresh that. I'm going to go back up to models here. We actually have to register the model. One step that I missed. So the first thing we need to do is register the model, then we need to create the endpoint configuration, then we need to create the endpoint. I tried to circumnavigate to the end and do it live, but there we go. So let's create our model configuration first. Let me just make that so you can see where we're at. We're at the models. So create model. And then this one's going to be called LBS Model 1. Then we can come down here. This is where we have to define, actually, this is what I was looking for. This is where we have to define the parameters that we used to build the model in the first place, so that SageMaker will know how to host this in the future. It's like an API for our model. Yes, sorry, I missed your name, but yes, absolutely. What we're doing here is setting up, thank you, Maheen. It's very tiny writing in front of me. Yes, what we're doing here is we're creating it, we're setting it up as a model endpoint, so that, yes, absolutely, we can then go and hit it like an API, an internal API for the moment. We are going to provide the model artifacts and inference image because we have used a built-in algorithm. You have options here to go and choose your model being hosted somewhere else. We're going to have a single model, and we have to put in here the location of the inference code image. Now, where do I get that from, you might ask? Well, we do that by going back into SageMaker and grabbing it from the training job. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go back into SageMaker here. I'm going to go back into my training jobs. I'm going to right click on that and open it up in a new tab. I'm opening up lots of tabs. This is what happens, guys. This is what happens. You end up with 1,000,001 tabs. I'm going to go back into this training job that we used initially, and we're going to find the values that we need from here. So I'm going to go in and look for the training image, and here it is. So I'm just going to grab that training image from there, just going to copy that, and then I'm going to find where I needed it, which is over here, and I'm going to paste it in here. So that's my training image. So it's basically telling SageMaker, how was this model made, and what image should I use in order to serve this out again. And this is the training image that we need. I'm going to miss out the optional stuff because I want to keep this nice and fast. And I'm going to say that's it, I think. So we'll do a single model with that, that training image in. All of the other things are optional for us at this stage. So I'm just going to go ahead and say create model and have a look, and it has created. Now it's created it super quickly, right? And the reason why it created it super quickly is it hasn't really done anything. All it's done is sort of collected together some configuration. We now have a configuration object, if you like, which we can use later on. And that later on is now. So we can go back to where we were before, and let's see if we don't need to refresh this. I'm going to say add model, and we do need to refresh this. So let's go back out of here, and maybe we start again. So I'm going to refresh this page. Hopefully everybody's following along. Let's go back to endpoints. Let's go to create endpoint. It'll work this time, right, Safdar? It'll work, right? It's all happy days, right? If you see me do things that like that, always feel free to shout out. Let's build something. Model 1 endpoint. I'm going to start naming these things something that I can tell what they are when I look at them. I'm going to create my new, we've seen this before, right? Everybody knows what to do. We're going to create a new model configuration, endpoint configuration. So let's build something. Model 1 endpoint config. There you go. My naming's getting subtly better. And then we get to scroll down to the models section. Here we go. Add a model. And there's the model that we had set up, LBS Model 1, not to be confused with the model I had from previously, LBS Model 1. Let's press save on that. And we now have that model loaded up into this endpoint configuration. I do need to click this button here, create endpoint configuration. Now that I've done that, it sort of like spins around in this console page. It comes back with success. Well done, you've created it. And it's sort of solidified, if you like, my endpoint configuration. You'll notice here that it's gone ahead and it's selected instance types for us, and instance count and instance weight. So basically, it's going to create an M4X large to do the inference for us here. Now, last week we used the GPU connected instance type in order to do the training, because training is often more computationally expensive. It's selected here the M4X large. Let's go and have a look at AWS instance pricing. Pricing for the M4X large. I'm just jumping into the first one here. No, that's the free tier. We don't want that. SageMaker pricing. Here we go. So there's a whole bunch of different pricing options here for different kinds of things. We're making inference. We're making real-time inference. We're creating a real-time inference endpoint. I'm in the Sydney region, so I'm going to keep this as Sydney, but it's likely to be more expensive in Sydney than it is where you are if you're in North America, for example. So let's find M4X large, and it's coming out at 30 cents an hour. So we're probably not going to have it running for, well, I might have it running for an hour here so that we can play around with it. But just bear in mind that cost. If you don't want to do that, then maybe just watch along and we'll have it here and you can see how it works here. So that's the endpoint configuration. Go down, I'm going to click Create Endpoint. And I'm hoping that I haven't missed anything out. And it says creating, which is marvelous. So this endpoint creation process will now take about 7 minutes, 10 minutes. I don't know why I've got 7 minutes in my mind. Maybe I've timed this before. We'll keep an eye on this and see how it goes. Safdar, have you got an idea about how long this takes?
It should be like, I think, should be done within 5 to 7 minutes, not more than that.
5 to 7.
Hopefully.
I like it.
Before
we're taking bets now, please. Okay, so we'll keep an eye on that as we go, and we'll wait for that to come up. When it does, then we'll start to use it to make inference. So I'll just be frantically clicking the refresh button here, and see where we go. So any questions that you have right now, this is the ideal opportunity because we're basically just going to sit here and wait for this to go. Amardeep, I'm going to ask you to help us out a little bit more in any ideas that you have for people who want to get started in machine learning. What do you think their approach should be? What was your approach? What have you seen that works?
I guess I would go with sort of like the most fundamental piece of advice, although it's become a bit of a cliche to, set up your own open source projects and to talk about them through social media channels.
Yeah.
That would be an ample step for somebody who's beginning to get into machine learning, but for talking about somebody who wants to get their message across or perhaps even talk to companies, then it's more ideal to work with more useful data sets. A good example of this being in the previous year itself, where many of my colleagues who were just, coming into machine learning for the first time decided they wanted to tackle data sets for ray tracing and coronavirus predictions. And suddenly everybody just jumps onto the bandwagon. Some of them, and even if they don't build great models, they still talk about their experiences, their pitfalls, what they learned, and they document it. So I think documenting what you do through, every single step is extremely important.
Absolutely. So the advice generally there is jump in, pick a project to work on. You mentioned open sourcing, which I think is a noble and great idea. Maybe even if you're not comfortable doing that initially, just jump in and have a go at doing something yourself with a view to maybe sharing that in the future.
Exactly. And I think there should be sort of like this high level idea about what you want to do with the data sets at some point. Dashboards are an excellent way of summarizing all those details. So I would, recommend anybody in the stream to check out tkinter. or any other packages used for dashboard development, because that way you can actually show what you've analyzed to people as you build your projects.
Okay, so talk to me about these dashboarding products. They're not machine learning specific, are they? They're basically a way for you to be able to publish data. Is that right?
That's correct, but you can also use them to predict, general kinds of data sets and their accuracies if you want.
Yeah, sure. No, okay, that makes sense. I have to ask you about DeepRacer because I just want to get your opinion on DeepRacer. Have you played around with DeepRacer much? Has it sort of helped you get any kind of understanding of machine learning as well?
I did, yes. So I think I pretty much talked about this previously. I was part of this nanodegree program for AWS ML back in 2020 again. And the introductory phase of this program with Audacity actually has you looking into the DeepRacer challenge. So
Yeah,
it's an optional part of the entire program itself, but I did go through it and I just really found it interesting.
awesome. Yeah, look, Mahid just put a thing up there. As a beginner in ML, should I look in DeepRacer? This is entirely coincidental to the question I just asked. Should I look into DeepRacer? It looks very overwhelming right now. Your thoughts on that? Like, I can appreciate that. I think that DeepRacer kind of, it looks very overwhelming if you're sort of just watching videos of these cars racing quickly around a track and like, how do I get into that? But how quickly were you able to sort of jump into the whole DeepRacer concept?
It did take me a couple of days to sort of understand the algorithms people were using, and to be honest, even I was initially overwhelmed because you see such activity coming in from all over the planet almost every single hour and every single day. And it's natural to feel overwhelmed. This is a budding sort of a field, and you can always expect more and more people to come in.
Yeah, I always thought it was very interesting for AWS to sort of have this competitive nature to DeepRacer. Often people that work in sort of the IT space are kind of introverted by nature. Not always. I'm just making some sweeping generalization. So then to sort of say, and now you're going to compete against each other. But I mean, you don't have to do that, right? You don't actually have to enter races. You could just sort of do it for the joy of actually seeing the car go around the track and actually complete a lap.
Absolutely. It's just a sort of joyous thing to see your code come into actuality once it's out there. So, yeah.
Absolutely. So and I suppose from a getting started point of view, you can log into the DeepRacer console. We're going to have to do some live stream about DeepRacer at some point because people keep asking about it, and it is very visual and very in your face, right? So I do understand that. But you can jump into the DeepRacer console and essentially if all you want, you can do the whole thing just by clicking buttons. You don't actually have to write any code. You can just take the sample code, deploy it, hit the go button, train, and just sort of see what it's like. And actually I think you get into the cadence of being a machine learning engineer quite quickly, because really from my observation anyway, to when you end up sort of doing this in the real world, it's experiment, click go, watch, think about it, look at it, okay, stop that, tweak something, hit go, watch. And that's exactly what's happening when you're doing DeepRacer as well. So there's a lot of experimentation. Really, like when you start to go into really large scale production models, the difference is that some of that retrying is automated and maybe uses machine learning to help you do that. But just get used to experimenting and just keep going in your training. So I'm clicking refresh on the endpoint creation. I just see creation time was. I'm keeping an eye on the time because we're holding Safdar to his 5 to 7 minutes.
Oh.
Oh, it's okay. So still waiting. It is probably we're on the 7 minutes mark. Sorry, Safdar, we're on the 7 minute mark. It's okay. We'll see what happens. I'll keep it up here on the screen so people can see what's going on. And look as well, we're in Sydney.
I'm not sure I understand.
Siri is telling me things. We're in the Sydney region here. Like we're known for being a little bit more laid back, right? Obviously, behind the scenes here at AWS Sydney, when I click the button here, it's sort of a light flashed up on someone's control panel, and they're busy taking the server, running down the rack, and putting it in. Is that pretty much how it works, Safdar? It's like someone's running down now and like plugging all the drives in for us?
No, it's automated.
Oh, okay. No, I jest. Although how awesome would that be if that was true?
Yeah.
So we're just still waiting for that to come up. Okay, cool. So so Amardeep, the projects that you've been working on, you've worked in some stuff in the machine vision space, right? Can you talk to us about that? And we have another question that's come up as well. I'll leave that up for the moment, Safdar. I'll let Amardeep just talk to that.
Uh,
Are you working in machine vision space as well? As
yes,
Amardeep?
that's correct.
Yeah.
I've been involved with a startup that's looking into sort of improving the way how note making is done in meetings and sort of taking out the whole equation of doing minutes of meetings or any other written content so that people could just, focus on communication. And so the model is, or rather the process that we're looking into right now is to simply have people come onto the platform where the model analyzes the computer vision, the video feed as it comes in, and just generate the transcripts as the meeting goes on automatically. And there is just a lot of code going into the background for now, I'd say.
Absolutely. No, I love the sound of this. I'm very often in very long meetings where I'm trying to be an active communicator, but I'm also trying to take notes. And then after the fact, obviously, I want to be able to sort of dig into my notes to remind myself what went on. So we'll definitely have to keep an eye on that one. That's very cool. Sorry, Safdar, you put a question up on the screen before it went away before I had a chance to read it. You mind putting it back up one more time? Thank you very much. There we go. Whoa. All right. 2 questions. Maybe we'll just go back to, yeah, no, this is the one. You're absolutely right. Is there a way of practicing deeply on AWS without paying or making purchases? How practicing new stuff can be frowny face. Absolutely. All right. So yeah, let's talk about costs in AWS and how you can sort of keep those under control. There's a number of different ways to do that. There is a video on this channel about this, so that's probably one way to do it. Is just go and have a look at that. But I'll summarize it here for you as well. If you have a brand new account in AWS, you get something that's called the AWS Free Tier. So if I just I think we also talked about this in the live stream earlier on as well. So if I just Google AWS Free Tier and go to the first link that is not an ad, just because I know it's going to be the one I'm after, this will start to tell you about what you have available from AWS for free for a brand new account. Now, this is a brand new account. If you've set something up inside of an organization in your company, in your company, for example, it might not be available for that. But if you have a brand new account you set up, so just new email address, new credit card, essentially. Actually, I think it's just new email address. It might not even be a new credit card. This is an amount of resource that you have available to you. If I scroll down on the left-hand side here, I'm just going to click on machine learning there, which filters the list out for just those machine learning options. And there is some SageMaker built into this. So you have 2 months SageMaker. You essentially have an MLT3 medium MLT3 medium notebook, so a T2 or T3 medium notebook that you can run for 250 hours per month for 2 months. So you can't keep it up and running for the entire month, but as you've seen from me, I bring the notebook up and turn it off, or bring it up, turn it off. So you can run that notebook server for a while. There are also some of the AWS services here, like Comprehend, that we haven't actually looked at in these sessions, but Comprehend, Recognition, Poly, those types of things, where you can use those in a free tier as well. So definitely become familiar with what you have available in the free tier. That's one thing. The next thing is probably about how much these things actually cost. So I've shown you there that this inference endpoint is going to cost me 30 cents for an hour. So if you just spin it up for 10 minutes and then turn it off again, then it's not going to cost a lot. But it is the case that machine learning capability does cost, right? Because it's large amounts of compute that we're dealing with. But that's the benefit there, is just you're basically investing in your own knowledge and investing in what you're doing. So I'd encourage you just to set literally a couple of dollars aside just on a month, just so that you can have a play around with some of these technologies. The other thing to talk about is the notion of the spot instances, which we tried to talk about we did talk about last week, but I wasn't successful in using. The only reason I wasn't successful is because I wasn't prepared to wait, because we wanted to sort of keep things going in this live stream. But if you can wait, then you can use spot instances for things like training. Unfortunately, you can't use spot instances for things like the inference endpoint, but they are available. So look for those kinds of opportunities for having your cost as low as possible when you're working with machine learning in AWS. And you can also do practice and do some stuff on your local machine as well. But at some point, my opinion anyways, you should go and put it up into AWS and have it working there too. All right, what's happening here? We're still seeing this is not working. I'm going to refresh the whole page. And maybe we need to go and knock on the door somewhere, say, why is this not working?
No, I think it's in the process because there is no error. So I think
Yeah.
it's taking some time,
Yeah.
but it will happen eventually. But yeah, it is taking a little bit more time, but I think there is no error. So
Yeah.
you
No,
know, it all
you're
depends
right.
on the network connectivity and other things also sometimes. So I think it will come up.
It will. And I don't know, maybe if I tried doing it in US East 1, maybe it'd be a bit quicker
Yes.
as well.
Yep.
So maybe I should bear that in mind next week when we're building. Maybe I'll move my resources to US East 1 and just be there with everybody else, because that's where everybody works, right? But I guess it's actually your home region, right? For both of you. Is US East 1 where you call home?
I think I've actually used like North Virginia actually, but
Sure, is that not US East 1? I thought that was US East 1. Yeah, US East 1 is
oh yeah,
New
sorry, that is
Jersey.
US is
US.
fun.
Yeah,
Yes, that's
Yeah,
correct.
yeah. So I know a lot of people that don't use that just because they figure it's way congested and whatever.
It's also called North Virginia.
Yeah,
Ah.
there you go.
Hmm.
She's not too far away from either of you. Oh my goodness. Oh, I'm looking at this. You're not looking at this. It's come up as failed, Safdar. What did I do? Righty ho.
Go down. Let's see.
It did not pass the
Okay,
ping
go to the
healthy check.
CloudWatch. Let's see.
Okay.
Go to the CloudWatch.
I like this. This is it. This is real, right? So
Yeah.
let's go down to here, and I've got the logs. So I'm going to go to the logs here. So this jumps me into CloudWatch.
Yeah.
And CloudWatch logs groups here. I'm clicking on that. All right. Let me see if I can make this large enough that you'll be able to read it, Safdar, as well.
Segmentation fault.
Another exception has occurred. Unable to start the inference server. I'm wondering if I used the incorrect.
No model parameters files found.
No model parameters files found. Interesting. So I'm assuming that if it couldn't find the actual the model code, so look, let's just step through this, I suppose. So the SageMaker environment needs to actually be able to call upon the actual model. So it needs to have permissions to grab the object from S3. If it didn't have that permission, I'm assuming it would fail differently to this. Unable to start inference server, no model parameters found. Please check provided model and try again. Well, we can but try again, right? Let's have a look down here. This is rather annoying. Models. And the model was there. What can we see from the parameters here? But the image is here. Is this, did I train in Sydney? I did. It seems that's not its problem. We'll fix this up. And Safdar, if you've got any ideas as well, let us know.
Just check that the model, the S3, where was the S3 location?
So
is it in the same region where you have created the endpoint?
Good call. Let's have a look. So let's just go to S3 and I'll load that up. Actually, while I'm doing that, let's go and actually have a look at the endpoint configuration because I think that's the definitive truth here
Yes.
of what I set it to be. Or it's inside of the, oh no, it's inside of the model variants, isn't it? So if I go back to models, am I looking at it in here somewhere?
Okay.
Where is it set?
Look at the role. Basically, let's try one thing. Look at the role. The role. This is the role, right?
This one here, yeah.
Execution role. Yeah. Copy that role and let's see. It has the permissions, right permissions to access the S3 bucket.
Yep.
So if you see, it has S3 full access or SageMaker full access, SageMaker execution. It
Doesn't
should
say. Let's
have
have a
the
look in.
S3 access, right?
It should do, yes, indeed. So SageMaker, blah, 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 blah. It's got a lot of things in here, but does it have S3? If I scroll past it, let me know. There we go.
Yeah, S3 get object. This is here.
But look at this. So what we've got here is we've got get object, put object, delete object, but only if the resource is star SageMaker star.
Yeah, this is the default
So,
behavior. So what we can do, I will tell
I think
you.
we just, yeah, go ahead.
There are two ways to do that actually.
Yeah.
Either just for the you can give the S3 access permissions, attach it to the role, or you can go and update the bucket name, right, with the SageMaker prefix.
Well, so I obviously I can't update the bucket name, can I, with the live bucket? So
I think it's better to attach the policy. I think it's a good learning actually.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I am going to
attach policies. Click attach policies.
So I'm going to do something here that isn't production, right? So I'm going to say Amazon S3 full access. So I'm going to give it the ability to do whatever it wants in S3, not production quality, that decision, but nevertheless. So that's the one thing. So we now made sure that that role that was used, and I must admit, I didn't take too much attention to the role I was using. So the role that's used now definitely can get access to S3. Right. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to step through this again. So I'm going to say create model. I'm going to say, let's build something, and you know what, I might end up model 2. See, that's why I put a 1 in there, right? Because we knew we were going to do this. Model 2, and this is going to be, this is just the model. Now we've got this role here. What I'm actually going to do, I know that what you've just said there, I know what we've just done would fix it. I'm going to say create a new role, and I'm going to say with this option here, you get to say any S3 bucket. I did this previously. I must have just used a role there where I hadn't have done this. This is our suspicion. So I'm going to have S3 any bucket there. I'm going to say create role. It's going to make a brand new role just for this, which is SageMaker ready and also any S3 bucket. So that's good there. Now I come down to container input options. Let's go through this slowly because, you know, when you've got all these cameras on you, it makes you do things more quickly. So we're going to use a model artifact that we've trained previously from a built-in algorithm. So we've got that selected. We are going to use a single model because you can put together multiple models together. We're not going to do that. And then it says location of inference code image. So let's make sure that we're getting this right. So I'm going to go into another tab, and I'm going to go into the training jobs. And here is the training job from last time. And we're in the Sydney region. And we have there the ARN. We don't want that. We want to come down to algorithm, the training image. So how do we feel about that? I'm going to grab that, and I'm going to bring it along into SageMaker and paste it in there. There's no space at the beginning. There's no space at the end. Location of model artifacts. Do you know what? I don't remember actually putting this in before.
Yeah, I think.
Do you remember? I don't remember putting this in before. I think I saw optional and thought I can save time here. I don't know why. So that would be optional, right? If you had your model artifacts built into the image that you were using, but they're not built into this image because this is the one that's managed by AWS. I think I just I think I just went straight over the top of this. So let's go back. I'm glad I found that. I feel comfortable that that's the mistake that I made. So let's go back in and find the model. In fact, I'm not going to look at it from there. I'm going to grab it from here. So this is our training job again. This is the training job that worked. We're going to go down and scroll to the bottom, and we're going to grab this URL here. In fact, I'm going to do everything carefully here, because we're not going to do this again. I'm going to click on this. We're going to then go and say copy the URI. We're going to go back to where we're setting this up, and we're going to paste that in there. Okay, so that's the actual path, and it says here it must be the path must point to a single gzip compressed. So that's exactly what we've got. That's the thing that we missed. Okay, now I genuinely don't care what the container is going to be called, so I'm going to leave that. I don't need to add any environment variables, so I'm going to leave that. I don't need this to be in any particular network configuration. So this is if you need it to attach to any resources inside of a VPC. We're not doing any of that. And I'm not going to put any tags on, but you absolutely should if you're doing this in production. Now I'm going to create a model from that. Okay, so now we have LBS Model 2. We're being a little bit calmer and slow down. Lesson learned for me. Now I'm going to go back to endpoints, and I'm going to say create endpoint. And I'm not going to blame AWS for being slow this time, because it was all on me. So LBS, is it Model 2 endpoint? Is what I've decided to call it. And we're going to go down to create a new model configuration. And we're going to have a new model name here. So LBS Model 2 endpoint config. There we go. And I don't need any encryption keys. And I don't need to have asynchronous invocation configuration. Or I'm happy to go with whatever it comes up with as default for that. Data capture, I'm not going to set that. That is actually quite interesting. So if you're running something in production, you can capture actually the data which is being sent to it, so that you can sort of like check to see how well your model's performing. Then I come down to production variants, which is where I get to choose my model. So I'm going to say add model. There's my version 2. I'm going to click save. I then do have to click this orange button to say create endpoint configuration. It says it has created that, which is good. And it's got those values from before. And now I say create endpoint. And now, what do you reckon? 7 minutes?
Actually, it should be earlier than that, but
Yeah,
you know,
okay.
since we have, I think because of issue, hopefully it will be quicker, actually, much quicker.
Okay. You think that
If there is no error.
yeah,
Let's
well,
see.
so this is because of that person in the data center. They've run along and they're actually stood in front of the right cabinet, right? They're ready. It's like, you got it wrong before. Come on, you get it right this time. All right. So we judge.
Very interesting. Two things, Mike, we learned actually. So
Yeah.
you know, one, like the access roles, actually S3 bucket, and the second is that we have to give the complete path of the model, right? So that, I think that's very interesting to see.
Yep. So I think slow down, read what it says. Yes, you do actually need to give it the model if you want it to host it. Who would have thought? Yes, excellent. So yeah, we'll get this up and running, and then we will make some inference with this. It will happen. Oh yeah, got some sympathy in the chat as well, so I appreciate that. Live troubleshooting. The thing is, right, it is a live stream. Things aren't always going to go correct. You know, in the past, it's been more to do with the technology of the button pushing and all the rest of it. But now it's me typing things too quickly. So, but that's what it is, right? And I don't want to shy away from it. I want to make sure it works. So I will stay here until this works. 2 days later, and the stream's still going.
And you know, Mike, one thing more, like it's very interesting. Even if it is taking time, at any point of time, we can open a CloudWatch screen also and see
Yeah.
the progress, right? So we don't have to wait till end. Even we can get those live updates.
Let's
What is
do
happening.
that. Let's
Yeah.
do that
Okay.
now. So I'm going to click on the model name
Yep.
of the or the
Sure.
endpoint rather here,
Mhm.
exactly as you say. So we're going to scroll and have a look at the logs. So view logs, and
Yep.
that opens it up into CloudWatch logs. So it should take us directly to the right log stream. So it says doesn't exist yet. Now I'm not concerned about that. I'm
It
not
will
worried
take
about
some
that.
time. It will take 1 minute or 2 minutes, then
It
it will
needs
start
to,
appearing, actually.
yeah. but we're in the right place and we can refresh that. So
Sure.
essentially, if it hasn't actually gotten around to getting the infrastructure quite yet, then that'll be what that is. I'm going to go back to here because it's a nice little summary view there of creating. Ha 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 ha. And of course, you can take this model and you can host it elsewhere as well. So you can host it in code. I know that a lot of people in AWS use things like, a lot of people using AWS will use things like containers running inside of Fargate as well. So you can run the model in there. And whereabouts, do you use SageMaker much for hosting models like this? Is this a screen that you're familiar with watching, or do you do inference in other ways too?
It's become, I guess, the second most common screen I've seen apart from my Linux kernel, so it's definitely really familiar for now.
Yeah. One day, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a plugin for the browser I use that will detect this refresh button and just sort of sit there clicking it every 5 seconds for me, so I don't have to do it. Because if it's not here, it's in CloudFormation as it builds. Just sit here doing this. Let's have a quick look back into CloudWatch. Let's just refresh that whole page. See if we've got any logs there yet. This is exciting times. Not yet. We'll get there.
In some cases, if there is no log over there, no news is a good news. It means everything is going as planned.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. I like that indeed. How was your weeks after? I usually ask you about that at the beginning, but I didn't ask you this time. There you go. Fill some time for us. How was your week?
It was the week was good.
Yeah.
It was busy. So I was, we had a project with one of our customers. They are trying to implement the scikit-learn models. Basically,
Okay.
it's about prediction of some of the, predictive modeling for one of the equipments which they maintain. So the customer wanted to have a predictive schedule for the components which they are going to the homes, and to know before the uh, component fails, right? So they want to have that probability model where they can accurately predict when a particular component is going to fail based on the previous data. So it was an interesting project. Basically, it was classification problem, and we did some work with them, and we got some results which were very accurate, and it saved them a lot of cost. And the customer experience also was really enhanced because they were able to predict the failure before it was supposed to happen, right?
The use cases for machine learning and actually seeing
Yes.
them actually having this significant impact in a business is amazing.
Yes.
What I
Yes.
really liked in the way you said there as well, if you're using scikit-learn to do that,
Right.
because the reason why I like that is because scikit-learn actually is it is quite straightforward to use, I find. So
Yes.
if you're doing machine learning problems that aren't necessarily deep learning enabled, so if you're doing things like decision trees, or if you're doing things like regression test bits and pieces like that, then scikit-learn's got a whole bunch of built-in algorithms, right, that you can use pretty easily with
Correct.
Python.
Correct.
Very easy to get started with as well. But as you've just said, you can also use it in production too. I just almost feel like people think that scikit-learn's like a little playground you can do, but it's actually, you can use it properly in production too, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And we at AWS, we support scikit-learn. We have our containers built on scikit-learn, so we support it end to end actually.
Yep, absolutely. No, that's really cool. And I think the scikit-learn libraries are available inside of the Jupyter Notebook environment as well.
Yes. Correct.
So
Yeah.
I'm rapidly hitting refresh here, so it's still in its way up. Amardeep, what are your frameworks of choice when it comes to machine learning?
Definitely scikit, like you mentioned again, and a mix of TensorFlow, the same as pretty much anybody else who's been in machine learning, I guess.
Yeah.
And I mean, but I do agree that sometimes there's not a lot of need for intensive computing, so you could just stick with the basics even.
Right.
And that's actually better because then you don't have to go through the whole process of building these large architectures. Instead, you could just work with something as simple as scikit.
Yeah.
But yeah, scikit, TensorFlow, and definitely a good mix of OpenCV as well.
Yes, yeah. So OpenCV for your image manipulation stuff, actually
Yeah.
maybe feeding into models, but OpenCV can do a lot of stuff itself, right? So it can do a lot of object detection type stuff.
That's correct.
No, that's really good. Very good. Still just clicking away here, refresh. I mean, it was always going to be like that, that long wait, wasn't it? Now that we're all waiting for my mistake to be rectified.
Let's go to the CloudWatch. Let's see what are the
Absolutely.
logs. Yeah.
Jump into that.
Just to see.
So I'll just refresh the whole page. So this is like your week, right, Safdar? Like jumping in on support calls and saying, okay. Okay, well, we've got a log group now. So we've got some logs, which is fantastic. Model loaded. I got a feeling this is going well. We're just waiting for the console to catch up, essentially. There are a couple of user warnings there, but
it's fine. There's no error, actually. Model loaded, actually.
Yeah, so let's go back here.
We are good, actually. It should reflect.
Yay!
Yeah, here we are.
Let's just all have a little happy dance. We've managed to get this it's up and running. All on me, all on me. Let's see if my Jupyter Notebook is still alive. It still wants to talk to me. Let's have a look. This is the notebook that we were working on before. I'm not going to take any chances. Let's just try running the cell. Yes, this is still up and running. Okay, cool. Excellent. So we've got that there. All right, look, that took longer than than I anticipated and I wanted it to take. But what we've shown there, I suppose, is troubleshooting, getting it up and running. It is now live inside of the AWS account that we're working in here. We've got now a model that we can actually use to make inference, and we can actually do this better work. Right, so I tell you what I've got here. I maybe should have shown you this before. Let's move this down. Look, there's my desktop. I have on my desktop here 3 images. Now, you will hopefully recall that what we're doing here is we're trying to classify images that we've seen, that we've created from this. I've still got it, still sat here on my desk. This PDF data set. This is super simple for now. We have tree, we have hot dog, we have cup of tea. We took images. I took images of this with my camera phone, with my phone. I took images in different kinds of orientations, and that was our training data. What I've done here, these images you're looking at here, these are actually not part of the training data. This is just images I took just yesterday or just the other day, using the same process. And we can use these now, hopefully, to test these against the model, see if our algorithm can make a prediction with these. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to upload these into our Jupyter Notebook environment. So I'm inside of, let's give this a name quickly. So we've got this, actually, I can't remember what we've called them before. So let's say LBS episode. Is it 4? Notebook. I'll rename that if that's not the naming convention we used before. But I just want to make sure it's got something. There it is. Let's upload the test images into here. So I'm going to say upload. And I'm going to go desktop, and you can see all the images I've got on my machine. And where are those? Where are those? Where are those? Oh, I'm in downloads. There we go, desktop. That one, and that one. Open that. Okay, upload, upload, and upload. So now we have those 3 images now in this environment. Of course, I will put this all into GitHub. You'll have access to this so that you can use these for inference if you want to. You will have to make subtle changes to the inference code. What I'm initially going to do is, well, let's actually do this with some Python code. So I'm going to say in here, I'm going to get rid of this because we don't need this. Let's import Boto 3. So this is the Boto 3 library. Hit Shift and Enter on that so it's running. We've got the asterisk there while it's going ahead, and it's going to go and load that. I might also need usually JSON. So I'm going to import JSON as well. So I've got that. We'll see if I need that. Then I'm going to go and create myself a SageMaker runtime client in the Boto environment. So I'm going to say client equals Boto 3, and this is the client. And then we have to sort of give it the name of the client that we want to run. So we're going to call, well, this is called SageMaker. It's not just SageMaker, it's SageMaker runtime. And when you're new to this, this is the critical thing here, because you end up using the wrong client if you just call the SageMaker one. We're not creating a new project, we're just making inference. We're using the runtime. So if I hit Shift Enter in on that, it should run. I should get a client object that I can use. We then basically need to go ahead and call the endpoint and pass in the binary object of the image that we want to use. So we're going to create, I'm going to go and grab some code off screen because I don't want to make any mistakes. And so what we're going to do is we're going to, actually there's not much for me to grab. So I'm going to say f equals open a path to the actual file that we want to open up here. So I've got test_1.jpg. Let's do that. So we're going to have test_1.jpg. So that's going to point in that direction. And we need to open it up as a binary object because we need to pass in binary data into our endpoint that's up and running and waiting for us. And then the actual data then is going to be fread. So we're going to read the data from that file. And we're going to read it into this object called data. So I hit run on that. I now have an object called data, which is a binary object called data, which contains the image that we want to make inference on. And that's pretty much it. The code now is a case of just using this snippet for the invocation of the endpoint. So we have our client that we set up before. We're going to invoke the endpoint. We need to add the endpoint name, which we'll go and get in just a second. And we need to add in the data, which we've got here. Now, the endpoint name here is specific to me and the endpoint that I set up. Let's go back into SageMaker and we'll have a look at our endpoints. These are our endpoints here. If I click on this top one, the endpoint name is this name. It's not an ARN or anything like that or a URL. It is literally just this. So we have to make sure that we're running in the same region and all the rest of it, and it's running inside of your account. It's going to use this. So we're going to AWS Model 2 endpoint. So maybe setting that to be something slightly more user-friendly would be a good idea. But anyway, it'll work. So it will work. So I'm going to paste the endpoint name in there. So there we have it. If I click Shift and Enter on that, no error message comes up. Of course, I didn't think it was going to. Did you think it was going to? I didn't think it was going to. We now have the response. We have the inference is now done. However, it's basically a streaming object, which has just been given to us there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this next line of code here to go and take this result. Actually, no, sorry, to take the response, go into the response, grab the body, read it and decode it, and then basically load that out of JSON into a result. So it's done a few things in one go there, but the thing to know is that the response that comes back from invoking the endpoint isn't just an answer. It wants to say, it's a cup of tea or whatever it is. I actually don't know what it is, kind of on purpose. I'm going to go back in and see if we're right. So what it's done is it's basically read the stream of data, decoded it, and then it's loaded that up into a JSON, into a Python object from the JSON that it's got back from the model. If hopefully that makes sense. So I press Shift and Enter on that. Now we have our response. So let's go and print out result. I'm just going to paste result in there, hit Shift Enter, and that is the answer. So what does this mean? And hopefully you can see that. Maybe make it a bit bigger. What it's saying here is that we've got 3 values out. Now, we looked at this kind of thing before. Basically, we have 3 output neurons on our deep neural network, and each neuron is relating to a different test case. Class 0, 1, and 2, essentially. And if we have a value which is 1, that basically means that that's the answer. So you'll see that it says it's of class 0. This is actually quite a small number if you look at the times 10 to the minus 17 there, and this one's just 0. It's a very simple model. These are not the kinds of results we'd expect from a bigger model. So what's it saying? It's saying it's class 0. Let's just go back to our data set and remind ourselves what class 0 is. So we're going to go back and we're going to go into episode, where did we do that? Episode 2. And we're going to go into let's go into our validation list because it's small and remind ourselves. So did I say 0? So this is our, we could make a configuration file or make a note of this somewhere. That probably would be a good idea. I might add that into this in a second. 0 is the tree, 1 is the hot dog, 2 is the T. So let's go back in and say, let's just add it into here. 0 equals, I don't even remember what I said. 0 equals a tree. 1 equals the hot dog. Follow along with me, guys. Hot dog. And 2 equals the T. That's our sort of key, if you like. Those are the labels that we have set up. So this has said 0, which is the first one. So let's go and have a look at test 1. We're going to have a look at test 1. We'll go back into here. And we're going to go back to lesson 4. All right. Now, before we do that, do we think this is going to work? Are we confident here? I'm basically asking you to be confident in me, right? Because you just watched me do this. We're all happy with this. All right. I'm asking you, Safdar, you Amardeep. This is your opportunity to like be right behind me. Okay.
It's gonna work.
It's gonna work actually.
All right, it's gonna work. Absolutely. Thank you. All right. So what did I want to do? I want to go to test image 1. Here we go. Test image 1. It is a hot dog. It's a hot dog. It's a hot dog. That basically means it hasn't worked, right? Test image 1 is a hot dog. Oh man. And so it's come back as test image 1 hot dog 0. So that hasn't worked because that is smaller, right? Let's go ahead and try test image 2. And so I'm just going to load that in, get my result back. Test image 2 is also coming back as hot dog. All right, let's have a look at test image 2. Shouldn't have made the big fuss about it. Test image 2. It's coming back as a cup of tea. That's not right either. So we're not necessarily super awesome in this model, right? What we're going to need to do next week, test image 3 is the tree. This is not good. I'm not happy with this because it was working better than this before. I'm not overly surprised that it's not brilliant, but they're all coming out as 1. Something is happening here, and I'm not very happy about that. But what we're going to do is we're going to debug this completely next week. We're going to try and figure out why this isn't working. We'll maybe retrain a model and we'll try and figure out why, because this is a very simple problem. And so that actually gives us different challenges, right? And so because we don't have a lot of data, training the model up means that it's kind of a little bit fragile, if I'm honest. So I'll work on this in the meantime. We'll throw this up next week and we'll debug this and figure out why it hasn't worked. I'm so disappointed by that. I can't tell you. But it is the trials and tribulations of machine learning, I guess. Amardeep, give me some nice words to finish this up on. The fact that didn't work.
Goodness. I mean, this is just the foundation of feedback learning. You know, you hit against the wall, you realize some things don't work, you go back to the drawing board, you fine-tune some things. It's the bane of machine learning, but you know, you get there at some point.
I will put the code up into the repository anyway, and so people can have a play around with it, because it still will work depending on how well your model's trained. This isn't a problem with the inference code as far as I can see. It's just a problem with the quality of the model. But yeah, thank you for that. Absolutely. I think as well, it's because we're just doing it in these small pieces week by week. But hey, if nothing else, let's title this this video, How to Troubleshoot and How to Set Yourself Up to Do More Troubleshooting. Because that's essentially what I've done. Safdar, your thoughts here? I mean, this just is, it's the fact of life. This is just how it works. But
Yeah, actually, see, honestly, when you're doing the machine learning problems, you need huge amount of data, right? So I think once we have more data and model can learn more patterns, definitely the accuracy will improve. So this is very common. I mean, you know, we in professional life, we have like millions or thousands of data samples actually, right? So and then the model learns basically with iteration. So you know, what we are doing is right, but definitely the model needs some more samples. So that's very simple actually. It's very common.
yeah, sure. So we'll do that. I have had this model working with this similar level of data. We'll just check to see what some of the parameters were. But it is fairly easy to make a larger data set. So we'll have a go at doing that. We'll throw this together. We'll train again. We'll iterate forward. We'll get another version. I think just to recap like what we've looked at and what is valuable from, I think, this session. So we've looked at setting up the inference endpoint. We've seen how that works. We've seen what's important. You do need to tell it the model you want to use. And so we've managed to get that up and working. We've sort of seen that you're not going to get that working instantaneously. It does take a few minutes to get that up and running. We've seen CloudWatch logs and be able to actually look at the CloudWatch logs to figure out what's happening and get that visibility, right? Visibility in AWS is always important. CloudWatch logs and CloudWatch in general is very much the center of a lot of that. And what we've just done here at the very end here as well is we've just looked at, just touched on how we can use Python to make inference on models inside of when they're hosted with SageMaker. And the plan was to move on to next week to basically use this to actually build the front end and show everything working. And to do that, you basically need to expose this this model endpoint that we've got to the outside world. And there are some steps that you need to go through to do that. What we might do instead is we're going to get this more robust. We're going to get this working. I did anticipate that it wasn't going to be perfect. So this is somewhat what I thought. You know, if you pass in model images where they're upside down and stuff, then it's not going to work. What would be actually quite interesting is actually to throw an image in here which it was trained off of, and just see if it actually can get that right as well. So I might have a go at doing that in just a second. But thank you so much for taking the time to be with us here today. And thank you for everybody who's watching. Thank you, Safdar, as ever, for throwing up the questions into the live stream for us. Amardeep, thank you so much for making your time available for us today as well, and talking about some of the projects you're working on and your pathway into machine learning. I'll put a link, if it's okay, to the Omdena website. We'll put that into the into beneath this as well. And if you want to, we can put a link to the particular project you're working on if you've got that.
Sure, definitely.
Let us know after the fact. We can put that in as well.
Sure, yeah.
If people want to sort of reach out and say hi, are you active on the socials somewhere?
Actively on LinkedIn, not so much on Facebook, to be honest. But yeah,
Sure.
do drop a message for any questions, comments, doubts. Always available.
Thank you, and I'll put a link to that beneath this video as well. Thank you so much. Thanks for helping out. Thank you for being here. Thanks everybody for watching. Thank you for sticking with me all the way through to this point as well. As disappointing a conclusion as it is real world. And next week we will make this work and we'll make it robust. So it's all about making the model a lot more robust in getting the classifications for us. Thank you very much, everybody. Remember, keep spirits up and keep building stuff. Stay safe, and I'll see you next time.
Take
Bye.
care. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Take care.